This is Kerrigan and Company. Some banks focus on transactions. At Rockland Trust, we focus on people. Relationships come first because financial success isn't built in a single meeting or a single moment. It's built over time by listening and showing up, by being in your corner through every stage of life or business. Come bank where your relationship matters. Rockland Trust, where each relationship matters. Member FDIC. We're giving you something to awk about on this episode of Kerrigan and Company.
Kerrigan and Company is here for you. Yes, Kerrigan and Company is here for you.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Kerrigan and Company. It's great to have you with us. We've got a great show for you today with a little bit of everything. We're going to first start with an author. His name is Keith O'Brien. Keith has written a book about the great Larry Bird, and this book is insight. You're thinking to yourself, oh, I know everything there is to know about the legend. Well, maybe you don't. This book has got some insight after a lot of research on the part of O'Brien that is really fascinating and really great. So Keith's going to join us. And then we're going to be joined by a doctor from Dana Farber. This is March is Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. And we're going to be joined by a specialist who is looking into the issue that younger and younger patients are being diagnosed with colon cancer. We're going to talk to her about what you need to know and why that is the case. But first, of course, keeping me company today, a friend that I haven't seen for a long time, but it sure is great to have him here today. Boston 25's Mark Ockerbloom. Good to see you.
I got to tell you, it's great to
I
be
always say Fox 25 because that was my,
Hey,
that's what I knew it, right?
I get it. But you're in the shadow of the champions, from a couple of years ago, right? Or last year, I should say, and then, or 2 years ago. But the Celtics Pro Shop, once I knew that, I know exactly where
I know where we're going.
great digs here.
Isn't this fun?
It's really nice.
Yeah, it's a great little studio in a terrific place, and a great place to talk about Larry Bird later.
Absolutely.
Right? When we found out about this book, my producer and I started going, okay, who would be somebody that we'd like to have on that is on our wish list who would be really great to talk about Larry Bird and the book, and your name came up really, really quickly.
Thank you.
So we were thrilled that you could be a part of it, and you could join us to talk about Heartland and talk about you.
Well,
tell me about Mark Ockerbloom. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. I'm anchoring over at 25 now. We're going on 22 years.
Is
Can
that
you believe
right,
it?
Mark?
Yeah, and but started over there in sports, which I had done since 1986.
Yeah.
Radio up in New Hampshire, Lowell. Then television in Manchester, then out to Oklahoma City for 6 years after 4 in Manchester, and then back home, NECN over to 25 in 2004. Yeah, so things are going along. We're doing a lot of news, weather, sport, and weather's been great. We can't do enough of it.
No kidding.
What we have.
No kidding.
It's 72 on my car thermometer coming in today, but we know 3 weeks ago I was using a snowblower.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if we're talking about cold weather or warm weather. Weather is important to everybody here, and especially at this time of year. Sure. I didn't realize that you'd arrived in 2004, because I did too that year. When in 2004 did you go to what was Fox 25? Can you remember which part of the year?
Oh, yeah, it was November 15th.
November.
My sister's birthday.
Wow, so you came in just after the World Series.
Actually, I'm going to tell you real quick, very small story.
Okay,
but,
no.
Here's what happened. I had November 15th. It was a Monday. Friday night, this is in the wake of the Red Sox winning the World Series. Curt Schilling is in Medfield, where he lived when he was playing here. And it was his birthday, among other things. But he had the surgery on his ankle, the famous ankle, okay?
Sure.
So we wheel him out on Friday night before Monday, okay? So they asked me, I said, you know what, I'll just start Friday. And they're like, okay, great. You got you for Monday? I said, no, I want to be there. I want to do this. So I emceed the event. So we got him in, but it was 3 inches of snow on the ground. Okay, and it's in October. Right? That's kind of strange.
Sure.
Then we have to get him down in a wheelchair and literally slid down a hill by the high school. He's like, gee, hold on, guys, So they got him in there. I did a package on that and did a story that night, and that's how it started. So I actually started 3 days early.
Yeah.
Got paid starting on the 4th day.
Yeah. Well, but that paid off, I think, in the end,
I
right?
thought it was a good thing to do.
Yeah, it was a
smart.
very good thing to do. I arrived there about the October, I don't even remember the date, but all the promotion for me going there was about coming for the series. And so I got there just in time for the series. So we were just a couple of weeks apart. So that's really great.
Well, and I can remember working the morning show with you when Gene was on vacation, when I was making the transition from news to sports.
Yes.
And so we'd be on for 4 hours, 5 hours,
Absolutely.
and everything else, yeah.
Yeah, that was, those were grinding days when we had those 4 hours, because there wasn't two anchor teams, there was just one.
Right.
So, but they were great. They were terrific days. You have been in the business for a long time. I'm always interested to hear how you think it's changed from when you started, or what you anticipated it would be and how it is now.
Well, I think, looking back on it, one of the things I did was I got into radio. I didn't go to a broadcast school like Syracuse and majors like that. I kind of was late to the party on that. I was an English major, business minor at Providence, and I decided, you know what did I love growing up? Well, I love being active in sports. I was BC High baseball and hockey. I get to Providence, and that's another level. So that's not happening. But I wanted to try and get involved in that more so. So I always loved the broadcasters who I'd hear, especially Keith Jackson or Fred Cusick with the Bruins. But Keith Jackson was national and everything else. So I thought, I got to do something to figure this out. So I went down to the campus radio station, which happened to be in my building at Joseph Hall at Providence, and I tried out.
That was convenient.
I tried out. Yeah, it wasn't bad. And I tried out, and I was able to start radio there, college radio.
Awesome.
And played some records. They wanted you to play the records that were people who hadn't been discovered yet, whereas I wanted to play the records I've listened to on the radio. That's more fun, right?
And it got more people to listen.
Yeah, I would think so. At 5 a.m, too.
Right.
It was very cold, And so, anyways, that's one change that I've seen. Because when I got out, I had interned at Channel 10 NBC in Providence, second semester senior year in their sports department. And while I was doing that, it just kept telling me, keep going, keep going. And when I got to do an audition tape, I walked back and they said, he's looking at me, he's walking on air. I said, that was awesome. How do I do more?
Where has this been?
So I worked in small radio at WLLH in Lowell, where Ed McMahon once worked. Lowell Lawrence Hable, the voice of the Merrimack Valley.
I love it.
Then we worked AM over, and a lot of other people at the stations were doing the same thing. They were just as a means to an end. So we did that, and then we did some radio up in New Hampshire and Peterborough. And there, I had to convince them to let me go out and sell, because they wanted me to sell. It was described as a board-op turntable operator, and it was in the Boston Globe Classifieds. And you send it to the state of New Hampshire Employment Security. I get up there, I drive up 2.5 hours, I'm sitting across from the guy, and he says, well, here's what we need. That's great, what you want to do on air, but it would probably be, would you like to start in sales, selling airtime? And I'm like, I drove all this way.
Right.
But anyways, I said, full-time job. And I said, look, if I do well in sales, I'll be your morning drive guy for sports to go out and sell. And they said, all right, we'll try it in 3 months. Okay. I came back 3 months, I was doing it, and they held up their end of the bargain.
That's great.
So I would do the sports early morning, go out, sell all day in the Monadnock region, a lot of driving, up and down hills.
I
mountains.
bet.
And eventually, parlayed that into a full-time sports job in Manchester.
Yeah.
And from there, I leaped over to television, over at MUR.
Yeah.
And that, when I look back on it, when kids come in now, I'm like, have you checked out the AM radio? I mean, that is like... No one's doing that.
No.
Not like they used to.
Right.
So for me, that was a means to an end. But for someone today, how's your social work? I mean, can you do
That's
content
exactly
quick?
right.
Can you grab eyeballs?
Yeah.
Grab ears?
I don't think that, well, first off, these kids don't know what AM radio is.
Right.
We start there, right? And my kids, who are not even small kids anymore, they don't even listen to radio. They've lost that. Absolutely. They are, they're streaming everything. So the world of radio is a generation like ours, and the rest. It's just sort of hanging on, it feels like to me a lot, which is probably one of the biggest changes that you've seen in your broadcast career, right? And I've seen that too.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
just amazing.
And now it's more than ever, everyone's competing for those minutes, those eyes, those, impressions, as they call them.
Absolutely,
to see what we can get for a level to the point where people see us. Part of the format with Boston 25 is we're on a lot more with newscasts. And the point is, when you get down to a blizzard, well, who's on? Oh, they're on. Let's put on 25.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so-
You know, I have been a firm believer, and I still am to this day. And I think it was probably a wise professor who said this to me years and years ago. Local news will never go away
Right.
because people still want to know what happened on their street, in their neighborhood, in their city. And do you feel that way? I mean, I just
do.
feel like it won't ever go away.
I do, because I compare that to ESPN and scores and highlights. And I was a sportscaster for a long time. So they would say at the end of the newscast, which is when sports, so it's news, weather, sports, very easy to follow. But I would have producers coming up to me saying, hey, guys, need a minute back. Hey, guys, need 2 minutes back. What am I going to cut? There's nothing,
Yeah.
Well, they've already seen the highlights on ESPN, or Nesson, or whatever it may be. So that was where I saw, wow,
Yeah.
what's sports like in the future and what's news look like in the future? And then when I was asked, would you ever consider it? I said, yeah.
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 Absolutely.
And I'd covered World Series, I'd covered Super Bowls, I'd covered big-time college football, I covered the Cowboys from training camp through to their last Super Bowl out in Tempe, Arizona, the last time they won one. And all of that, just came together because it was a way to get experience and so forth. But, when you look at this all together, I think it is a pattern of change, really, that I don't think is coming back.
Yeah.
And,
I agree. Right. Yeah.
It's interesting because I think there were more jobs back then as well. They're
Absolutely.
becoming more scarce. But to your point, as far as the local goes, it's always going to be like that. And that's what you did, I think, as a television station. I know at MUR, we said, look, we can't compete with ESPN. They're going to get the scores anyways. This is before the real phone thing happened, which is a whole other matter. But you were able to, just look at this and say, what has changed in our world? Well, that changed, and the amount of time that you have to put it on the air. So what do? You focus on hyperlocal. We had UNH, we'd go there a lot.
Sure.
Patriots, that was the long haul.
Absolutely.
And high school sports, you could do real well with that. I had a guy on my radio show, he had a baseball card shop.
Yep.
And back in the late 80s, they had a sudden resurgence. And all these different cards you could get and make money and collect. So we had this guy on, and he would say, all right, tell me the card you have. Is there a black circle around it, upper left corner? He was like dialed in. That was the biggest rating show I ever. Anytime this guy came on, it was crazy.
Yep.
But he was great.
Yep.
Because he could do instantly what we needed to know.
Sure.
But it was hyper local.
Absolutely.
And your kid, your grandparents. I always said that. Guys, remember, it's their parents, it's their friends, it's their grandparents, it's fellow students. That's a lot of people.
Sure.
Here, not somebody who's necessarily from working here, but outside of the state.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We didn't have those satellite stations and YouTube like you guys.
But it's so true. It's that hyper local that will always be with us. It's not going to go away.
Yep.
That's great. 3 daughters.
Yes.
Got one getting married.
Yes, I do. Just found out a week ago.
Not only is your professional life has to change, but now your personal life starts to change as well. It's amazing, right? What a
It's
ride
fantastic.
you're on.
I think I told you guys earlier, my wife and I knew in November. And then February 28th is the night everything happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
She didn't know anything at any turn. She thought she was going out for lunch, meeting friends. They never met those friends. Meanwhile, while they're out in Charlestown, where they live right now, we're back at their place. His parents came up from New Jersey, his sister. We came in with our crew. We decorated everything. She comes back from that, opens the door. We're back here in the kitchen. Charlestown, we're renting.
Right.
Anyway, we're standing there, and all of a sudden, she's shaking up and then loving everything. And then we ended up staying there about 3 hours, and then we went down, and the next act's going to follow because his parents said, we're going to go to a hotel, freshen up. And what time you want to meet for dinner? And then we made it like it was going to be just the family, those
Yes.
groups that we had. And we get there and early, I take a separate car and so forth. And then she walks in, and we're all in the back of the bar. We rented off an area.
Oh,
and then the
gosh.
bigger rush, because those are her friends, my siblings. I got a big family.
That's everybody.
And, it was great.
That's fantastic.
It was something, like I said, he told us, asked for her hand in marriage in November. And we had to wait a while. Keep it under.
Did his parents know?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He had told them too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. When you have to
That's a
sell
lot of
something for
people
so
knowing
long.
and keeping quiet.
Yes.
That's pretty
And
impressive.
that's the thing. Nobody slipped. I mean, we had to do some things like, oh, the dog's in the Ring camera. Julie's here from Nashville. Well, wait a minute. If Julie's here from Nashville, why is she here? And, we didn't let on or anything. But it did not record, so it was okay.
Yeah, good. Well, that's
Never.
terrific, and congratulations.
Thank you.
It's so exciting.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Mark, we do this thing here called Rockland Trust Fast Five.
Okay.
Fast Five is brought to you by Rockland Trust Bank, where each relationship matters. Visit your nearest branch or go to rocklandtrust.com to learn more. This is a rapid fire Fast Five. Okay.
Okay, here we
Are
go.
you ready?
Yes,
Here we
I've seen
go.
this before. I'm gonna try and see what-
Which New England sports team is your favorite to watch live?
Bruins.
What was something you enjoyed about living in Oklahoma City?
The people.
If you weren't a news anchor, what other job would you do, and would you be good at it?
Well, I can't do the Red Sox. I can't be a Bruin. So those are out. What could I see myself doing? I don't know. Maybe hosting a show like this.
There you
On
go.
a podcast.
And I think you'd be very good at it. With St. Patrick's Day are just around the corner. Do you like corned beef and cabbage?
Not really, although my grandfather, John Torpy, would be yelling at me right now. The pride of Charlestown himself.
There you go. And what TV show would people be really surprised to know that you watch?
Oh, boy. That I watch now, currently, or watched at one time?
Maybe you've watched in the past.
How about this? The morning show.
I like it.
It's getting really good. It's been a problem. I've been trying to match up our schedules, my wife and I, but we settled in over the last few days.
See, you do what my husband and I do. We make a vow. No one watches this unless we're together. Well, we're together,
Right.
not very often. So, listen, our friends at Rockland Trust would like for you to have this lovely
Well,
mug
that is
for
great.
playing along with
This
our
is
Fast
fantastic.
Five. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Yep.
You. We talked to you about, coming up next, we're going to talk to
Yeah.
Keith O'Brien about Larry Bird. But before we do, I just want to throw this in. We asked you about a guest.
Yeah.
And our last guest today is someone that you suggested, and that's Dr. Kimmy Eng.
Right.
And she is a specialist, a colon cancer specialist, and most specifically, she's even more specialized. She's really studying younger people who have been diagnosed. Your brother lost his battle to colon cancer,
Right.
and I know that's been a very hard thing for you. Much as your big brother,
Right.
and your wife was diagnosed.
Yeah, that was just before Thanksgiving a year ago.
Yeah.
And part of it, to be a little on the lighter side, her prep was actually while we were all at my dad's house up in Winchester for Thanksgiving dinner.
Oh boy, and
So
she still loves you, right? Because she was going
the
through
house
that.
was quiet, and it was a time where, gosh, everyone's eating, and she's on a prep for a colonoscopy.
Right.
Anybody knows about that?
Right.
You're not going to be eating much that day. You're
No.
actually drinking very little.
Right.
But the good news is, the great news is, I mean, we was shocked when we heard it, and it was that she had upper right in her body. Okay, was replacement of some polyps that were cancerous. So after getting through that initial shock and thinking about my brother, then he said, okay, but within a month we have to do surgery. This is Beth Israel Deaconess. And they were fantastic. From the time they took the intake on, my wife would say, boy, they're fantastic about really caring about how you're doing today. Remember, you're 12 days out, you're 5 days out. Right. Any questions, we're just following up. So that all worked out really well. And the surgery went well. So well that she didn't need chemotherapy or radiation afterwards.
That's so great.
But she does have to come back year after year just to make sure everything's okay. As her doctor said, you and I are going to be fast friends for at least 5 years.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
we just had a recent test go through, and that went well. So
Great.
Yeah.
That's such great news. I'm so happy to hear that.
Yeah, and it's been kind of an interesting week because last week there's a police chief in Pepperell who retired, stage 4 cancer, colon cancer. And we had done a story just to do on the Pepperell area for news. And then are you aware that he's going to be retiring soon? He just this and that. So I followed Dave's time along through this journey, and his son, who had gotten shout outs from all kinds of people, athletes, pro athletes, friends, neighbors, TV people. Could you give him 10 seconds on the thing?
Sure.
And he had Team 14 Strong. So I got a T-shirt, wanted
Yeah.
a T-shirt to be part of the team. And then I get a call from his son. I hadn't heard from him in a while. And he said, I want to talk to him, Dave's son. And I said, yeah, I remember. And he goes, I want to tell you. And I'm thinking, I'm holding my breath.
Yeah, I bet.
He's celebrating 5 years cancer-free.
Super. I was holding my breath.
Awesome is that?
It's fantastic.
That's a good
great.
story.
It's a great story.
That's a great story.
It's a great story.
I said, absolutely, I would do
bet.
that. I mean, this is great news.
Absolutely.
I do news all the time, but this is the best news.
This is the good news. Yeah.
So,
this is the
hopefully
reason
we're
you're in the
making
business. Right. So this is colorectal cancer awareness month. And that's why we thought, I know how strongly you feel about it, and you want people to be aware. You want the word out. So
wife.
a little bit. Well, of course.
She will tell anyone.
I bet she will, and good for
events
her.
we go to, she's happy to talk. She's happy to, I know what she will say is get screened.
Yep. Get screened. Well, we're going to push that over and over again. So Dr. Kimmy Yang is going to join us a little bit later. But coming up next, hey, you think you know all there is to know about Larry Bird? Well, wait till you hear about this book. That's coming your way. Stay with us, everybody. This is Kerrigan and Company. Banking shouldn't feel transactional. It should feel personal. At Rockland Trust Bank, we take the time to get to know what matters for your business so we can support what comes next, not just today, but for years to come. Because when you have a banker who knows your business, understands your goals, and sees your vision, that partner can make all the difference. Come bank where your relationship matters. Rockland Trust Bank, where each relationship matters. Go to rocklandtrust.com for more information. Member FDIC. Do you need to buy new technology? Let AGI Beacon help you buy better tech for less. The team at AGI Beacon understands technology from the inside out. AGI Beacon provides expert guidance to help businesses navigate complex technology decisions with clarity. With AI transforming business operations at an unprecedented pace, having the right advisory partner is no longer an option. Go to agibeacon.com today to learn how they can help you with all your technology needs. That's agibeacon.com. This segment of Kerrigan & Company is brought to you by Allure Matchmaking. Your forever after is waiting for you. Find them through Allure Matchmaking. Go to allurematchmaking.com today. Welcome back, everybody, to Kerrigan & Company. Great to have you along. And, of course, keeping me company today is Mark Ockerbloom. Mark, you are obviously a sports fan. And as I said off the top of the show, we knew that Keith was going to join us, and we knew you would be the perfect fit. So I think this is going to be a lot of fun.
It's fantastic. I mean, there are things that you read in here in the book, you never really remembered or you never knew in the first place.
Right.
I mean, we all know that Auerbach, Red Auerbach, the legend, went and said, I'm going to draft him before he graduates.
Yeah.
Sleuth move. He had a million of them. But that was
a good one, right?
Fantastic.
Yeah. Keith O'Brien is our guest, and he is the author of Heartland, A Forgotten Place, An Impossible Dream, and the Miracle of Larry Bird. And, Keith, I've been saying over and over, I think a lot of people think they know a lot about Larry Bird. Until you read this book, and then you realize there was a lot maybe that you didn't know, at least about a lot of those formative years. And one of the things that I'm fascinated by, Mark, is that this entire book is based on unbelievable research on your part, Keith, and, hours and hours and hours, I know, of interviews, but not a single one with Larry Bird.
That's right. Heartland is an origin story, for Celtics fans out there. This is, a story that takes place between 1973 and 1979. These are the years that form, shape, at times save Larry Bird. And of course, I wanted to talk to Larry. I tried. I tried through proper channels, through the front door, through his agent. I tried through back channels, through his friends. And to be clear, by the end of my research here, I was quite close with the people who are closest to Larry right now. I don't mean Danny Ainge or Kevin McHale. I mean his friends today. And, unfortunately, he opted not to participate. But, I learned through this book and also my last book on Pete Rose that, while it's great, of course, to talk to the subject at the center of the narrative, you can often get a more accurate portrait of the person by talking to 15, 40, 100 people around him, and that is what I've done here.
Be curious to see if he actually places a call after reading the book and says, "Yeah, hit it out of the park."
Well,
You never
have not
know.
heard from Larry. I have heard from a great number of people, though, who are part of this story. Over the years, I think we have simplified this to the point of almost getting it wrong. Anytime somebody looks at the early life of Larry Bird, they end up doing the Bird Magic story.
Yes.
Larry Bird, Magic Johnson story, and we weave those two narratives together. And listen, I get it as a storyteller why you would do that. Bird and Magic will play in that epic championship game in March 1979, the most watched game of all time. And then they're going to go on to spark a generational rivalry, save the NBA in the 1980s. But the fact of the matter is, in the 1970s, Bird and Magic barely knew each other.
Sure.
They aren't friends. They aren't rivals. They aren't anything. Magic Johnson is no different to Larry Bird than Sidney Moncrief or Mark Aguirre, other future NBA stars who Bird plays against. He's just another guy. And what I really wanted to do here was tilt the camera a little bit, take a different perspective, and zoom in, on this cast of characters who were around Bird. Each of these people around him, they're all underdogs. They're all from rural Indiana. These are the people who really give us Larry Bird, and that's the story I was looking to tell here.
Well, you talk a lot about the fact that had it not been for these unsung heroes, had it not been for these people who are around him, Larry Bird would never have become Larry Bird. He was going to be a trash man. Talk a little bit about, he went to the university, for those who maybe don't know this part of the story, he went to the University of Indiana to play for Bobby Knight, never played for Bobby Knight, nothing ever developed between the two of them at all, really. Ends up going home to be a trash man.
Yeah, so there's a lot of fresh reporting around this time in Larry's life. It's the fall of 1974. Larry's on campus in Bloomington for all of 3 weeks. He comes back to French Lick, and I think a lot of sports fans know the shorthand that, he ends up getting a job, where among his other duties, he is collecting trash. But it's even darker than that. That winter, he briefly enrolls in vocational school, and he's playing for the basketball team there. Then he quits that team. That's when he gets the job for the city where he collects trash. While all of that is happening, his family is struggling. His father is unraveling. Tragedy is on the doorstep of the Bird home. And by, February, March 75, Larry Bird is gone. He's playing in what's known as the Industrial League in rural Indiana. This is essentially glorified pickup basketball.
Right.
He's playing in a league of guys who are 8, 9, 10 years older than them. They used to be good, but now they have day jobs and wives and mortgages. Their teams are sponsored by taverns and liquor stores. No one cares about Larry Bird. And, were it not for a man named Bill Hodges, down on his luck, assistant coach at Indiana State. We may have never known the name Larry Bird. In April, May, June 1975, Bill Hodges, whose career, by the way, is moving in the wrong direction, who has drifted to the edge of the basketball map, just like Larry, goes down to French Lick looking for Larry, finds him outside a laundromat, coaxes him to come back to school, really through a personal connection that Bill Hodges and Larry have. And, that really is the moment, that pulls Larry Bird back from the brink.
And it also, moves along to his father ultimately taking his own life.
That's right. And that's what happens in the middle of that dark and stormy winter. And listen, Larry Bird's 18 years old that winter. He's a kid. And, were this to happen to a kid today, we have a word for that in 2026. It's a trauma. A suicide is a trauma in a family. But no one talks like that in rural Indiana in the 1970s. There is no care system, built around Larry. He really has to shoulder this tragedy, shoulder this grief, and move on, alone.
I think two of those two, Larry and, in the championship game there.
Right.
And Magic. And then the whole career they had as they went through the NBA, and then Bird Night, which I was at here with my brothers, by the way. It was fantastic when he pulled off the Lakers and put on the Celtics jersey. The place went nuts at the old Garden. But, those two, I think, also really, put a lot of effort into people watching the NCAA basketball tournament. I mean, that's one of the hallmarks of that in terms of, people can't wait for this to start. Over the weekend, we saw a bunch of buzzer beaters on social media. Can't wait for that tournament to start. And they were big parts of that.
They were, absolutely. And it's a big part of the book. But I think it's important to know, that Bird and Magic didn't create the wave. Again, it's another thing I think we've simplified too much. They're riding this wave in 1979. In the 70s, the NCAA tournament is growing and growing. Expanding year after year. Television audiences are growing too. The NCAA tournament sets viewing records in 1972, again in 73, again in 75. The whole decade of the 1970s is a moment in which the sports that we love today are growing into these corporate behemoths that they now are. Yeah. And so, all of this is happening behind the scenes. All of this is growing. And then, in 1978, 79, here come, two generational stars that really amplify the moment. But, again, in the days before that Final Four, that included Bird's Indiana State team and Magic's Michigan State team. NBC, the television network that carried the tournament in those days, said out loud that, they would go over the top on Monday night in the championship game if Indiana State was there. It's very likely, in my opinion, that the game sets a viewership record, even if Magic Johnson isn't
had not been there
on Monday night.
Yeah. Let me go back to just the process of putting this book together. You got a lot of people in a little town who I think recognize that Larry Bird's pretty private, to talk about him and about some of these situations, that he found himself in that people don't know about. How did you get them to do it, number one? And what was their attitude toward Larry at this point?
So, I'm from the Midwest originally, born and raised in Cincinnati. So, this is, not unfamiliar territory to me. And so, the most important thing I did here was just go there. I'm really good at tracking people down, finding phone numbers. I will find you if I need you. But in this case, I was finding phone numbers. I knew they were right. And people in French Lick weren't calling me back. And so what I did was just go there. I booked a trip, and I went there, and I booked a room at the Best Western on the edge of town. And then I texted people whose numbers I had who weren't calling me back that I was coming. And, once I was there, boots on the ground, people wanted to meet. And once I was meeting people face to face, other doors opened. And, Larry doesn't get back to French Lick much anymore. He doesn't get back to Terre Haute much anymore, where he played in college. He really has, in a lot of ways, done today what he wanted to do 50 years ago. Bird has, sort of disappeared. But, unlike Pete Rose, who I wrote about in my last book, most people have incredibly fond memories of Larry Bird. And most people who were touched by him along the way, were changed in positive ways. And so, once those doors were open in French Lick, people, did want to talk about this almost impossible time in their lives, 50 years ago.
It's great to, just a little sidestep here, but when you see on social media now, you grab your phone and you put in Larry Bird, the highlights are amazing. The trash talking is legendary between him and a slew of different players in the NBA. He always backed it up, those three-point tournaments at the All-Star game. I mean, he's just Larry Bird, one and only. Not going to get another one.
Yeah. Well, he is a legend. There's no two ways about that, and he's the best of the best.
Absolutely. And it's interesting. He has that confidence in him even as a kid in French Lick. He has an enduring belief in his own abilities. And he shows signs and flashes of that trash talking in high school and a little bit in college. But it really comes late. One of his assistant coaches at Indiana State was a man named Mel Daniels. Mel Daniels was an ABA icon, former ABA MVP, a Pacers champion with the Indiana Pacers. His number hangs in the rafters today in Indianapolis. And Mel was a beast of a man who once opened up a 30 stitches gash on a guy's jaw with his elbow during a game. And, in that last season that Larry plays at Indiana State, Mel Daniels is on the coaching staff. And after practice, Mel Daniels and Larry Bird would play one-on-one going against each other up and down the floor. And, the guys on Larry's team, they would stay. They would watch. I mean, this was much-watched television, right? Watching these two go at it. And the whole time they're playing, Mel Daniels is just giving it to him, giving him the business. And really, in a lot of ways, it was Mel Daniels, who taught him, how to trash talk.
Yeah. So, Keith, this just absolutely reads like a movie. Have you thought about that? I mean, I see this on Netflix. I see this, I see it somewhere for sure.
I've learned as a writer that you have a lot of control over so many things and then no control over a lot. That's one of those things I just have no control over. But I do agree with you, Kim. It is a cinematic story.
Absolutely.
And it isn't just on the basketball court. I mean, some of the most cinematic, haunting, and emotional scenes for me are the things that happen off the basketball court, among this group of underdogs and cast-off guys who come together in one miracle season and really change everything.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I will be out there voting for it to get on a screen somewhere near me soon.
Thank you. I love it.
I really, really enjoyed it. I have to tell you, I'm going to share it with my dad. My dad is a huge basketball fan, and I can't wait to share it with him. I know he's going to enjoy it. So congratulations to you. Heartland, A Forgotten Place, An Impossible Dream, and The Miracle of Larry Bird. Keith O'Brien has been our guest, and continued success.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. This was a lot of fun.
Great being with you.
You bet. We'll take a break, everybody, and when we come back, we're going to be talking to a doctor about colon cancer. So stay with us, everyone. Boston is full of smart, driven professionals whose lives are full, but their love lives, well, not so much. That's where Allure Matchmaking comes in. Led by Jill Vander, Boston's most respected matchmaker with more than 25 plus years of experience, Allure eliminates the noise of dating apps and replaces it with discretion, dignity, and high-quality introductions. Every match is thoughtfully vetted and personally selected. No public profiles, no endless swiping, and no guessing games. If you're ready to stop wasting time and level up your dating life, contact AllureMatchmaking.com today. Here's a word from Sienna Aesthetics.
My name is Dr. Howard Kesselman. I'm the medical director at Sienna Aesthetics Medical Spa in Beverly, Massachusetts. I'd like to discuss with you 3 benefits of GLP beyond those of weight loss, with which I think many are familiar. Number 1 is very favorable and protective effects on the heart. Number 2 is very potent anti-inflammatory effects. Number 3, kidney disease, very protective against progression of chronic kidney disease.
For a free GLP-1 consultation, go to siennaesthetics.com and book today. Welcome back, everybody, to Kerrigan and Company. Keeping me company today is Mark Ockerbloom. And, of course, we just had a great conversation with Keith O'Brien about Larry Bird, and what a great book. And he's going to have a lot of success. I was not exaggerating. I see him everywhere pushing that book, just been out for a week or so.
And also a lot of the stuff you haven't heard yet. And you think about how many times people wrote about the brilliance of Larry Bird.
Right.
he's found even more.
Yeah, he certainly has. You know, I know you because you're a former sports anchor and certainly probably a student of these kinds of things. You knew maybe some of the points that we talked about, but I didn't realize his family background and how dark it was.
Yeah, it really was.
So that was a really interesting part of it, and really talks a lot about how he has come from that place to where he is today. You had suggested our next guest. I'm so glad that you did. Dr. Kimmy Eng is the director of the Young Onset Colorectal Cancer Center over at Dana Farber Institute. March is Colon Cancer Awareness Month. And we talked earlier in the show that Mark's wife, thank goodness, she was diagnosed with colon cancer about a year and a half ago, but is doing very well. So we're very, very happy to report that. Unfortunately, you lost your brother to colon cancer.
My brother, I did, yes, back in 2004.
Absolutely. So let's chat with Dr. Eng here. It's great to see you.
Thank you for having me.
We're so glad that you could be a part of the show. Thank you. You are studying the fact that and are doing a lot with younger patients who are being diagnosed with colon cancer. And we were talking about this off the air. It's very surprising. Is this a new wave, or is it that we're learning more about the fact that young people have colon cancer now?
So this is something that's relatively new that has been seen in the trends that people have been publishing. So basically, people under the age of 50 have been experiencing about a 2% per year rise in the rates of colorectal cancer ever since the mid-1990s. And this is coming after a period of actually steady decline in young people. So this is very much a new phenomenon, and it's not only happening in the United States, but is actually happening around the world.
Let's talk about what could be causing that, too. I mean, it seems every day I read something I shouldn't eat, processed meats, shouldn't drink alcohol, at least to excess, and some other things that maybe people can kind of start to prepare themselves, because you never know. And we'll talk about, I'm sure, as we move along, the need to get even younger with these screens and these tests. But first of all, some of the elements that you think trace back to possible diagnosis.
Absolutely. So if you look at these trends, they follow what we call a birth cohort effect, where the increase is really varying by generation, such that more recent generations are having a higher incidence of colorectal cancer than people born in earlier generations. And when we see a pattern like this, it very much suggests that it's environmental factors, such as diet and lifestyle, such as the things that you have mentioned, that are likely contributing to the rising rates. And so we've studied this, and we have found several things that do seem to increase the risk of someone getting this at an age under 50. And these include obesity, poor quality diets with a lot of ultra processed foods, high intake of sugar sweetened beverages. Even being breastfed as an infant actually can increase the risk of a young adult developing colorectal cancer. But when it comes right down to it, so many of our patients have none of those risk factors. And so more research really needs to be done to better understand the underlying causes.
And doctor, when someone is diagnosed under the age of 50, are they in a latter stage than maybe some of those who have been screened on a regular basis? That was one of the one of the topics that we talked about here in the studio before going on the air. Young people aren't screened for colon cancer.
They are not, although the U.S. Preventive Services Task Force did recently lower the age at which to start screening for average risk individuals down from age 50 to 45. So hopefully more and more young people will be getting screened for colorectal cancer. But if you look at the rates, they're rising most steeply in people in their 20s and 30s who still remain ineligible for screening. And just as you said, as a result, they are getting diagnosed with much more advanced stages of colorectal cancer than somebody who's older. This could be because they aren't getting screened, but it could also be because there's more biologically aggressive disease in young people.
I was going to say, it sounds like if you're young, what I'm reading a lot of times is it's very aggressive for the young people in general.
It is. When we look at studies, and it's still a little bit conflicting, the data, but if you look at many studies, they seem to show that the very youngest patients actually have shorter survival than a patient in their 60s or 70s. And this is despite getting more aggressive treatment, more surgery, higher doses of chemotherapy. So that does lead us to believe that perhaps younger patients with cancer may be less responsive to treatment or just have biologically more aggressive disease. And we're trying to do the research to pinpoint what those differences are.
Well, I think what we would need to, do here is lay out for people, because young people are not screened, what should they be looking for?
Yes. So some of the most common symptoms that especially a young person may present with if they do have young onset colorectal cancer is seeing blood in the stool. Now that is tricky because a lot of people, will attribute that just to hemorrhoids or some other cause, a benign cause that's probably more common. But if anybody sees blood in their stool, that does warrant immediate clinical attention and should be worked up further. Other signs and symptoms may include a change in your bowel habits, so new diarrhea, new constipation, or a new thinning of the caliber of your stool, abdominal pain, unintentional weight loss, fatigue or shortness of breath that may indicate a diagnosis of anemia. So those are some of the more common symptoms to look out for.
Also, with my family now having, my wife had cancer, my brother cancer, the obvious question is, when are you going to have your 3 daughters screened for it? They're ready to go at this point. Is that right? I mean, we're just doing the paperwork, getting the time frame worked out, but we
Yes.
understand the need, and they apparently, the doctors and insurance and everyone else understands that need, correct?
Yes, this is such an important point. It is so important to know your family history, because if there is a family history of colorectal cancer or even an advanced polyp, family members may be eligible to start screening even earlier than 45. And for somebody who has a strong family history of colorectal cancer, the usual rule is that family members should start screening at an age 10 years younger than when the youngest person in that family was diagnosed.
Wow. Huh. That's very interesting. Yeah.
I would say, just real quick, my brother passed 2004. How much have you seen in the development for turning this ship around over the past, years that have, since he was gone?
So, unfortunately, the trends are still going in the wrong direction. And actually, the American Cancer Society just published new statistics this year that colorectal cancer is now the leading cause of cancer-related death in people under the age of 50. And this is sooner than what all of us were estimating to be happening by the year 2030. I will say, though, that every day new insights are being gleaned about what might be causing this. And a study published last year was especially exciting because it indicates that perhaps there is a direct link between the microbiome, which is all of the organisms living in all of our colons, and the risk of young onset colorectal cancer. These researchers found a distinct molecular signature that was much more common in young patients with colorectal cancer than older patients. And that signature is likely caused by a bug in your microbiome called E. coli. So that is one recent advance. And we are gleaning more and more insights every day into what might be causing this. But there's still a lot of work to do.
I think what just makes me really nervous about it is that young people are not screened. But so having said that, you're 45 and older. You need to be screened on a regular basis because you have that advantage. You can be screened. The screenings, everybody talks about how terrible, the prep is, and I think that's even gotten better over time. So it's not that terrible, and it's just a little nap, and that's about it.
Well, not only that, it's a nap and a cleanse. Think of it that way.
Exactly.
You don't have to do some diet, so you can just kind of do it all at once.
You're so right.
Yes, and I
I
always
have
say
experience, so that's why.
yeah, the best test is the one that gets done, right? And certainly colonoscopies are not for everybody. There are some real barriers to certain people getting colonoscopies. So actually there are a slew of tests that can be done for screening. And these include some home-based stool tests that can be done very easily. You don't have to take off time for work. You don't have to have a ride. You don't need to undergo anesthesia. And that's a very good screening test as well.
And they, I am assuming, are effective.
They are. Now, there is a slight difference. Colonoscopies are still considered the gold standard because it can prevent colorectal cancer by removing polyps, as well as detecting colorectal cancer when it's still at an early stage and more curable. The stool-based tests are predominantly good at early detection, not so good at catching things at the polyp stage. But if you get that positive stool test, you're going to need that colonoscopy anyway, and then cancer prevention can happen as well.
It's interesting. I talked to, we did a story together. You had commented on Pat Beauregard, who I interviewed a few years ago. Tell us about him and what he meant to you.
He was such a special person, and he was diagnosed at age 29, 2 weeks after his honeymoon, with just 2 weeks of symptoms. And even when he looked back, he really couldn't think of any other symptoms that he had prior to that. And he ended up being diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. He was just such a brave person throughout the entire journey. He received so many treatments of chemotherapy, clinical trials, but at the same time was such an advocate for colorectal cancer awareness. He helped us launch our young onset colorectal cancer center. And what's heartwarming is that his family, I am still very close to them and in touch with them. He passed away a few years ago, but they are still involved. They just came to our patient and family forum this past weekend. Dr. Beauregard, his father, wrote a book called Reservations for 9, reflecting on his son's diagnosis and experience, as well as his own experience with young onset cancer. And they are just an incredible family who is still doing so much to raise awareness of young onset colorectal cancer.
I mentioned to Kim earlier, too, that his father had beaten cancer himself, and it was very difficult for him to go through this process for the obvious reasons. And then when you put in the medical terms were used, and he would accompany his son to these, just to make sure the clarity. I think sometimes when a person's told you have cancer, you can't think of anything.
Right.
That's why you always bring someone with you, as we come to find out. But his situation was different in the fact that he was adopted and had no record, because we look at family histories, but if you don't have any means of finding that, how would you know? And that's one question that he wonders with Pat was, if I had known, I would have been more aggressive on this potentially. And I'm not trying to speak for Doctor, his dad, George. He's just a great guy. And, I read his book, obviously.
And doing a lot for other people in
really
an effort
is.
to, try to make sure that this doesn't happen to another family. Doctor, I think that is probably the quintessential example of why your research is so important, because this is a young person who says 2 weeks prior had absolutely no symptoms. And it's what's really frightening for all of us. We have young people in our lives, and there's no reason to believe that they would be ill. So give us some hope here. Give us some positive news for young people. And because for those of us who are of a certain age, the news is just get those screenings. Just be sure you stay on top of it. And if there's changes in your person and you know it, have that checked. What about young people?
I think the call to action is be aware of symptoms and know your body. There is such a stigma still around some of the symptoms associated with the potential diagnosis of colorectal cancer, and it makes people embarrassed to tell their family members, to talk about it with their doctors. But we need to normalize these conversations and these symptoms so that earlier detection can happen. So that's one takeaway. Go to your doctor if you're having symptoms, especially blood in the stool. And the second is know your family history. It is so important that if you do have access to that family history, talk to your family about it, because you could qualify for screening at an even earlier age, and then that could be potentially life-saving.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Doctor, this has been so enlightening. We can't thank you enough for taking the time to chat with us today. Dr. Kimmy Eng, we appreciate it. Again, it's the director of the Young Onset Colorectal Cancer Center there at Dana Farber Cancer Institute. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for having me.
Great to see you. Thank you.
All right, let's take a quick break. We'll wrap things up here at Kerrigan and Company in just a moment.
If you like rum, you're going to love Rumson's Rum, New England's most award-winning rum brand. Rumson creates distinctive and savory flavor profiles by hand-selecting and marrying the finest barrel-aged Caribbean rums. The spirits are then blended and finished in the New England Rum House. Choose from Rumson's Gold, Spiced, Grand Reserve, or Coffee Rum. Find Rumson's at liquor stores or ask for it at your favorite restaurant. Learn more at rumsons.com. That's rumsons.com. Rumson's. Life lived. Life enjoyed.
This segment of Kerrigan and Company is brought to you by Sienna Aesthetics Medical Spa. Take years off your face with the very latest technologies at Sienna Aesthetics in Beverly. Well, it's that time of the show when we wrap things up. Mark Ockerbloom has been keeping me company today, and Dr. Eng is amazing, and I'm so glad that we had her. The information is incredible, and it leaves a lot of us aware of the fact that more needs to be done.
Oh. Yeah, and you can get involved, and that's a big thing.
Yeah.
My family, we all get involved. Generations have gotten involved with Pan Mass Challenge, the Jimmy Fund Walk. There's one, get your rear in gear. A lot of people have gone to that one. It's down in South Boston. We had a beautiful day last year. And a lot of people can say, I'm a survivor.
Yes.
Together.
Right.
And what did you do? How did you deal with this and everything else? So there's way to get involved in that.
Yep. Yep.
And I encourage people to do that because it's very meaningful to do and know that you're helping people in that fight.
Well, if you're someone who's fortunate enough to not be dealing with that in your direct family and you want some way to get involved, keep in mind that raising money is the way to do it. Raising money means more research, and more research means more information for everybody, which is what we need. And again, our young people, and I'm sure many people who are listening and watching, and certainly you and I, we have young people in our lives, and we want to make sure they're protected. I'm so happy to know that your girls are in a situation where they can be tested, and I'm so glad for that. And as long as they stay tested, they're going to be just fine. We know that for sure, but we just need to get them tested.
That's right.
So
spread the word.
Yeah, it's all going to be just
fine.
fine.
Earlier to you, my wife Marisha will say time and time again to her friends, anybody who will listen, get screened.
Yes.
And that's an important thing. It's a big takeaway from today. I will add that when you do these type of benefits like Pan Mass Challenge or the Jimmy Fund Walk or those things, get a team together. It's the best feeling you can experience. You're helping people in need. And it's usually, more often than not a great day. We did have one time down in Bourne when it was a torrential rain. We all wore blue ponchos, and it was incredible.
But that's part of the fun too.
Well, yeah, exactly. We all did it together. Exactly.
It wasn't like you were the only one.
Every day to be, 75 and sunny. It doesn't happen always, but you make the best of it.
I just want to know everybody's having a bad hair day, not just me, right?
There you go. Well, put your poncho hat on. Don't take it off the hood.
I am so glad that you came to spend time with me.
This has been fantastic.
It's been great to see you again. Continued
Likewise.
Success over there at Boston 25. And I'm so glad that your wife is well. Yeah. And we'll just keep plugging along. She's gonna keep, as you said, she's gonna get to know her doctor well. That's good. That's all good.
You just want to stay ahead of it and ultimately, set it free from you.
You bet. Absolutely. Mark Ockerbloom, everybody can catch you over there.
Let's see, 4.
I was going to say
10 or 11.
There you go. They can catch you.
See what your news, weather, and sports we got.
You bet. Absolutely. Thanks so much for being a part of the show. Really appreciate it. And thanks to all of you for listening. I hope this has been an informative day. If you are watching us on YouTube, please subscribe and be sure that you follow us on social media. We'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody, for listening to Kerrigan and Company. To find out who will keep me company and be my co-host on the next episode, be sure you follow us on Instagram, Facebook, X, and TikTok. Kerrigan and Company is recorded at the Big Night Studios at the TD Garden in Boston. You can view the podcast on YouTube and listen to it wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure you tell a friend. The executive producer of Kerrigan and Company is David Thompson, and our social media managers are Grace Kerrigan, Colby Thompson, and Riley Thompson. See you next time.